Hey everybody, welcome back to Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Alexa, and today we continue our study of the book of Psalms by looking at Psalms 56 through 60. These Psalms are all written by David, and they each are in response to a troubling circumstance he is experiencing. Psalm 56 was written in response to when the Philistines captured David in 1 Samuel 21, 10 through 11. In this psalm, David prays for God to be gracious to him and to help him in his situation. Yet even though David is afraid, he puts his trust in the Lord. Instead of fearing man, David fears the Lord. He knows who God is and he worships who God is, causing him to trust in the Lord rather than being afraid of his enemies. His God is greater than mere humans. David penned Psalm 57 when he fled from Saul into a cave. David continues his prayers from Psalm 56 by asking for God's deliverance. David writes how his heart is confident because he trusts in the God Most High. Even though he is in a dark cave, David ultimately finds shelter under the protection of the Lord. It is by clinging and trusting in the Lord that keeps David praising even in trial. In Psalm 58, David expresses grief and righteous anger over the enemies against him. Some of the language may be hard for us to hear in this psalm, but we should read these words as figurative language describing the justice David desires. Unlike the unjust actions of the wicked, David knows that God will enact perfect justice as the great judge of the earth. In Psalm 59, David writes in response to when Saul tried to kill him in 1 Samuel 19. David writes how the agents Saul sent to kill him prowl around his house like dogs seeking to attack him. Yet even though he is being ambushed, David praises God for being his stronghold. David finds peace as he clings to the Lord and trusts in his faithfulness. David penned Psalm 60 after fighting against enemies. The attack of the enemy leaves David feeling like God has rejected him. David knows that he can't have victory unless God leads his army. But even still, David trusts in the Lord, and he says that God will perform valiantly. Psalms 56 through 60 should cause us to reflect on how we respond to situations of hardship and suffering. Do we respond with trust like David, or do we crumble in fear? David doesn't deny that his circumstances were hard, but he still trusted in the Lord in the midst of them. God is greater than our greatest fears. He is bigger than anything that seems big to us. When we see who God is in comparison to what we are facing, we will learn to trust him. These psalms should cause us to reflect on where our hope lies. Is our hope wrapped up in our circumstances or in the person of Christ? What kept David secure was that he didn't allow what was happening to him to shake his hope in the Lord. In the same way, in times of hardship, we must remember that we are to hope in Jesus. Jesus is our conquering King and our great deliverer who has rescued us from death. His triumph over sin and death shows us how our God is for us. In response, we can say with confidence the words of Paul from Romans 8:31. If God is for us, who can be against us? Because God is for us, we can face anything in this life. We can trust Jesus in our circumstances, knowing that he is strengthening, helping, and delivering us. Christ is our stronghold and solid foundation in times of fear. Thanks so much for joining us today. Don't forget that on our website, you can find our Story of Redemption study that accompanies this podcast. And if you're interested in diving deeper into the Psalms, we have a study called Wait on Psalms chapters 31 through 60. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to talking with you tomorrow.